Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Eric May, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Pan Global Resources, Inc. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you are interested in scheduling a meeting with Pan Global Resources, please click on the Schedule Meetings tab found in the platform navigation bar. You'll be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Jason Mercier, Vice President of Investor Relations and Communications of Pan Global Resources, Inc., which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol PGZFF and also on the TSXV under the symbol PGZ. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Eric, and welcome to Pan Global Resources. The ESCACENA project in southern Spain is our primary focus. We also have a couple of other projects that we're pursuing in Spain, but I wanted to first start off by saying that you should expect that I'll be making some forward-looking statements here. Our lawyers would appreciate it if you read this. Looking at slide 3, investment highlights. The La Romana copper tin discovery that Pan Global made at our project approximately 20 kilometers north of Sevilla in Spain was in late 2019, just before the pandemic set in. Over the course of the time since then, we've drilled 150 holes at the project and identified what we think is a very compelling copper tin silver discovery, and in one of the more favorable jurisdictions in the world. At this point in time, we're still looking at the down dip to the north, as well as extensions to the west and east on the property that could potentially add significantly to a future resource. We're doing some pre-resource modeling right now, and you'll see a little bit later on what that looks like. This year, we've got 20,000 meters planned of drilling on the ESCACENA project, which itself, besides the La Romana deposit, has approximately 12 targets that our geologists have determined are worthy of exploration. There's major copper operations nearby, and I'll show you that in a slide later on here. But the Iberian Pyrite Belt, for people that would be surprised that there's mining in Spain, the Iberian Pyrite Belt, which stretches just south of Lisbon all the way to north of Sevilla in Spain, is a well-established mining district. There's 7 major operators in the area that are producing, and numerous development and exploration projects. The Romans first developed some of the mining in this area, what they could find at surface, and part of the story behind the ESCACENA project and La Romana discovery is the fact that it was just under enough cover that the Romans couldn't find it. Pan Global is backed by an experienced management team and board. We've got 2 mining engineers, as well as a geology team of 7 on the ground, as well as 2 geologists in management. So it's a very heavy on exploration discovery experience. Most of the team worked together at Rio Tinto at one point in time or another, either on the exploration, business development, or operations side. So we run the full gamut from discovery all the way through development, permitting, and management of operations. Because the team is quite well connected and most of our team are located in Spain, the potential for expanding on the portfolio is always there. We're in very close connection with most of the mining operators in the region. And so we've got our ears to the ground for any other opportunities, such as how we discovered the ESCACENA project and how a project like this would normally have been in the portfolio of a much larger producer. But it was really through the connections, through other geologists and other people working in the area, that our CEO, Tim Moody, was able to contact the people who had the rights and obtain the rights for the company and vend them in. We have a $8.5 million Canadian exploration budget for this year. And at present, we're actually operating under budget. At the end of January, we had 8.9 million Canadian at bank. For users that are familiar with the story of Pan Global and of copper in general, obviously this chart doesn't need a lot of explaining. The demand for the next 30 years looks like it could be the cumulative total for all copper consumption to date in history. So that kind of demand, it'll be virtually impossible to meet it on the supply side. So we think that's very positive for the economics in the copper industry. We also think that the copper price is probably going to have to increase to incentivize more exploration, more discovery. As you're probably all aware, and if you've been reading the news on other copper projects in other countries in the Americas and elsewhere, there's been an increase in costs, there's been a decrease in grades, and other factors such as energy inputs are increasing the cost of production. So for a company like us, this is very bullish. Looking at the Iberian Pyrite Belt a little closer, you can see that it stretches, as I said, from on the west below Lisbon, all the way to where we are at ESCACENA, just northwest of Seville. The seven major mines in operation, Atalaya's operation, Rio Tinto, where in fact the Rio Tinto company was founded. That operation is a huge VMS open pit deposit in operation, is significant tonnage and will be continuing for years to come. It's within trucking distance of our property. 12 kilometers to the east, you'll find Las Cruces, which is First Quantum's property. That mine, they're considering at this point in time about going underground after they've mined out the pit. Neves-Corvo, Lundin, that's of interest, and that's in Portugal. The interesting thing there is that used to be the largest tin mine in Europe. And the commonality between what the core looked like at Neves-Corvo and the first core that we pulled out of La Romana deposit is what compelled Tim Moody to say, let's assay for tin, because he thought that it looked very similar to what he had seen years ago at Neves-Corvo. So that shows the depth of management experience in the belt and is something that is invaluable as time goes on and as we develop the mine. The 20,000 meters at the ESCACENA project will be targeted in various areas. Most of it will probably be at La Romana, but we're not ignoring the other targets. We recently announced the Kenyatta Honda drilling that we're doing a couple of skite holes there with the opportunity of looking at an anomaly that potentially could give us some really interesting results, something to learn about. So that's quite exciting. Zarcita, which is a large strike area that we've got a target of about 2.5 kilometers. We're doing 20 holes, which if you consider how big a hole is, not that just touching the surface really for such a large target, but we're expecting the results from the Zarcita drilling in the near future. We're also, of course, getting new exploration data and looking at new targets as areas come open to us. The mineral rights we have for 5,700 hectares. Surface rights, we have agreements with 90 different farmers for access, and we're working on 2 different access agreements, which I'll talk to in just a moment. We recently released our metallurgical test work for copper, and we're working on the tin metallurgy at this point in time with the pre-resource modeling also underway. So I'll talk to that a little bit today. La Romana was quite a remarkable discovery in the fact that we essentially hit on the second hole drilled at the target. This is incredibly rare in the exploration business, in the mining business in general. You're having the best technology in the geophysics you can have at the time, and as many different coincident anomalies and coincident indicators. But at the end of the day, you're still drilling into the unknown. So at this hitting on the second hole was remarkable. What's also been remarkable too is the 150 drill holes that we've done at La Romana, 99% are containing mineralization. So for us, that's an incredible confidence builder. And again, we're still looking at expanding that to the west and to the east, as well as down dip to the north. What we've learned about the deposit in those 150 holes is that it's a perfectly situated as an open pit. It's a 35 to 40 degree dip. It's got predictable geometry. There's no faults. There's no folds. And what we've learned recently with our metallurgical results that came out last month is that it's low in deleterious metals. And that all of that is remarkable in the Iberian Pyrite Belt, where generally you have more complex mineralogy. You're looking at having to deal with arsenic, bismuth, and other deleterious metals, which add cost to the process because you have to grind into a smaller size for processing. The multiple signals that we're using we're also using on different areas. Sometimes people ask us, well, why are you drilling this target and not that target? Sometimes it's to do with crops, and we're very sensitive and work with the local farmers as far as getting access. And most of the crops in this area are either olive trees or some grain. And so we work based on the seasons with them and then the availability and access. So that's something that we're very sensitive to as a company, and we think it's just good business. Obviously with the number of mines in operation and our two mining engineers have a vast depth of experience in working with operating mines in Spain, but as well as working from exploration development all the way through permitting and production. That helps attract a very experienced and motivated workforce. Here's a visual which I really love. It's showing through Google Earth what the orientation is. And again, I think people's perception of Spain can sometimes be incorrect in that obviously with the amount of mining that occurs today, but as well as historically, the communities in this area are very strong supporters. And the local mayor of Untitled is a former miner himself. And there's very good support for mining in this region. You can see that, as I mentioned, First Quantum with Las Cruces is 12 kilometers to the east. That has processing facilities. Grupo Mexico is just in late stages of permitting. Their word from the government is that they will be permitted to go underground at Los Frailes, so they can begin construction this year. That's, if you look at the pit where the Ethnocallar pit is, that's the edge of the pit is 600 meters away from our property border. The Rio Tinto mine, where I was just a couple of weeks ago, is a vast VMS deposit, the largest VMS deposit in the world. It's been mined for decades and will probably continue to be mined for decades more. Of all the slides in the presentation, I would say this one is probably one of the most interesting, the La Romana deposit. This is really showing the core of where our value is as a company today. Also, some of the potential of where we'll go in the future. We've got a 1.2 kilometers long strike at this point. We reach this area here, which is just at the western edge of the red portion, where we go into the west. And we're in late stages of conversation with the farmer to negotiate an agreement for surface access, and we're very hopeful that will occur soon. This is completely untested, but you'll notice the La Romana workings, surface workings, that's from old, which we presume are Romans, access where a stream cut through where the deposit is. So then it showed its surface, and that's why that part was mined. You can see some of the intercepts here. 1.3% copper, 0.7% copper over 24 meters. The other thing to take notice of is the SN, which is tin. 0.07% tin doesn't sound like much, but when you consider that tin gets on the market anywhere from 3 to 5 times, depending on the volatile pricing, that ends up being, a 0.07 is actually a 0.21 copper equivalent. So that's something that we think will once we get the metallurgy on it, we'll determine what kind of valuation that will add. But certainly that will help add to the value. It also makes it more of a standalone story with the Pan Global. This shows the continuity and the predictability of the deposit as we've come to know it so far. These holes are going anywhere right from the beginning with hole 5, and the grades that we're getting, most interestingly enough, if you look onto the left, the highest grades are actually occurring near surface. Again, from a financial perspective, that means earlier payback for investors. You'll notice too, there's very thin cover on top. That's another reason why, as I mentioned earlier, the Romans didn't find it, but it's also why we have been fortuitous in coming across the property. Here's a section just a little bit further along. Here I always like to point out hole 40, which is this 52 meters at 0.8% copper. That's the last time we did a financing, which was almost 2 years ago. If you think about what the deposit was then at hole 40, we are now at hole 150, and our pricing of the financing was 60 cents, and we're currently trading at 35 cents. So we've essentially tripled the amount of mineralization we found in that time. But our share price is not reflecting that yet. We do think it will reflect it soon, but I think that's an interesting value proposition for any investor. The metallurgy is something that we put out, and we're really excited about this. And you can see what the kind of metallurgy we're talking about here. The recoveries of 86 and 89% are top shelf. Final concentrate grades are very acceptable for the smelters, and the low deleterious content, and then not just tin, but the potential payable silver in the copper concentrate is something that we're really excited about. Now, again, to note, this metallurgy is just on copper. We'll be getting tin metallurgy in the next 2 or 3 months that we'll be releasing as well, but knowing what the basic metallurgy is for the copper silver concentrate is, we're quite optimistic about tin as well. You'll notice here in the notes, this is fairly technical, but if you're not technical, to explain it, that typical in the Iberian pyrite belt, people are grinding down to 10 to 25 microns, primarily to get rid of the deleterious metals. Interestingly enough, even pyrite and zinc do cause issues, and of course most of the projects do have zinc in them. So for a project like this to get the copper and not have a lot of zinc and not a lot of pyrite, that's why we'd be able to grind at a much coarser grain, which means a lot lower energy inputs. Energy inputs can be 30 or 35% of your process costs. So to be able to reduce some of your core costs like that right from the get-go is obviously another positive. This was tough to put on a slide because there's so many high value attributes that are associated with this project. And so you can read through some of them I've touched on here, the geometry, the coarse grain, the higher copper recoveries, the exceptional infrastructure, the fact that you can drive by highway from Sevilla to the project in about 25 minutes by road, and later on you'll see in the presentation there's a photo of where La Romana is. There's a high tension power lines run right through the middle of the property. All of those things are things that would be costs or negotiation with government, and also delay the speed to production. So for us, without having to put in roads, without having to spend a lot on how do we get power to the project, that's a huge win for us. Most interesting if you're an existing investor, because we haven't shown this before, is here's our first look at what a block model pit shell simulation would look like based on a ultimate shell of 1.5 kilometers on the 1.2 kilometers of strike that we have drilled. Obviously, this would change if we do discover more to the west. We're doing open pit studies. We've also got our baseline environmental studies are well on the way. And then we're also doing cost studies. So while a lot of people may have thought we were just drilling, we're actually doing a lot of the baseline work, not just for the preparation for a maiden resource, but we're also getting a lot of the baseline work that you need for a PEA. This is what the project looks like overall in the targets. So when I talk about a dozen targets, you can count them, and up into the northwest there's even more as we get more gravity survey work completed. I expect there'll be more targets there. The western extension of La Romana also gives us access to La Romana Norte, Barbacena, and El Pozo. So it's a large property. It is something that has a lot of great potential. Also to the east, if you look at the Bravo target of east of La Romana, that Bravo target is a very juicy anomaly and looks to be very similar to what La Romana is. The no drills in it yet, so we'll see what it looks like. Also looking at this, if you compare where Las Frailes and Calor pits were, these were both gravity anomalies. The Las Frailes was a blind target that way, and that was how it was found. So another aspect to remember is that, of course, with VMS deposits, they tend to come in clusters. So this is a nice trend if you look from the Romana Deep to Bravo, Bravo Norte, Asno Calor, and Las Frailes. That's a nice potential trend in the area. This is what I mean by that. So you've got the open pit that's 2 kilometers away from our closest anomaly here, and then La Romana. So if you look at the Neves Corvo, as we spoke about in Portugal, it's not just one deposit, and you mine the one deposit. You're usually mining a handful in a region. So right now, things are looking very consistent to what they have there. Again, what sets the Romana apart, is how close to surface this is. Most of the mineralization that occurs in the belt is starting at around 150 meters down. We've got stuff that's actually just a meter from surface. So there's a lot of great potential for this, and of course, like I said earlier, payback. It's getting quite expensive, as you see. A lot of the existing mines are getting to quite a depth. Neves Corvo is now down 1.2 kilometers below surface, and then exploring at an even greater depth. So something for us that sets us apart, and I think that's another part that people find very compelling on the story. Kenyatta Honda, as I mentioned, we just announced that drilling, and we're just doing a couple of scout holes there, testing that anomaly. We've had some good results in the past, and even a little bit of gold in there too, which has been different for this project. So we're really interested in that, and looking at what the potential is in that area. Stay tuned for those results, because we expect those will be out fairly soon as well. Zorcita, as I mentioned, the 2.5 kilometer strike that is being targeted. We're almost completed that program at this point. It was a former mining area back earlier last century, but it's got some indicators of where we might be going with the stock work. The other project that we haven't spent any time talking about, but is also a nice asset for the company, and would actually be a primary asset for a lot of smaller junior polymetallic companies, is the Aguilas project. That's 200 kilometers to the northeast of where we are with ESCACENA. It's a more of a traditional pyrite belt kind of. It's outside the belt, but it's traditional polymetallic. So silver, lead, zinc project. Hitting on every hole that we drilled last year, and looking at doing a 10-hole program there as well this year, as far as trying to delineate some of the value of that project. On the corporate side, very strong and dedicated shareholders that we've had with us right from the start. A very strong high net worth and also mining industry insider shareholder base. I think we've also got quite a few investors in the US, and I think they've either come through Eric Coffiner or Joe Mazumder's newsletters or from the analyst coverage we have through Echelon and Sprott. Catalysts for this year, we're looking at obviously getting access on the surface for west and east of La Romana, looking at obviously drill results from either one of those targets we believe will be a catalyst. Drilling on new targets such as the Kenya Honda and others that has potential to really add. The metallurgy from copper already out, the metallurgy for tin just coming down the road. And obviously, we'll be adding new targets as we get more information up to the northwest. In 2024, we're looking at more for La Romana maiden mineral resource estimate, and then on to when do we do a PEA. At this point in time, I'll take a look at questions and see if there's any more from there. Just looking through here, so yep, the Aguila. I'll read the question. So Tim mentioned we do have another project about 200 kilometers to the north, more lead, zinc, silver. We do have a short drill program planned for this year as well. Can you give more color? We haven't seen anything before. Yeah, we haven't reported much on Aguilas. Last year we did have some results out of those basic holes that we've had. At this point in time, with the focus on getting to La Romana West, we haven't started the drilling yet at Aguilas. So stay tuned for that, but it's something that has potential for us as a second project that could be joint ventured, as well as looking at other economics on it. So I think there's a potential there for sort of value that we can pull out for the company. How supportive is Spanish government for the mining industry? I think it's very interesting that, when you talk about the Spanish government, in fact, the way support is shown in Spain, most of the permitting is done at the local level. So it's done at the Andalusia level. It's not done on the federal level. Other areas of Spain can be more challenging, and other projects can be more challenging, but the Iberian Pyrite Belt is solid and is a very good track record of permitting. A good example is the Samphire Matza property, the Magdalena project. It was discovered in 2012. It was put into production in 2015. On any scale, 3 years from discovery, greenfield project to production is incredibly fast. Granted, it was a project that was tied in with other processing facilities, so they didn't have any of that. But still, that's a good indicator of what's going on. There's new discoveries being made in the belt all the time, and new mines going into production. And is ESCACENA a greenfield project? Well, I guess unless you're the Romans, then it is. It comes across as a bit of a brownfield project, but the last drilling that occurred here was actually done by Exxon, and it was in the 80s, and that data was kept with the mineral rights holder, who Tim Moody, our CEO, was able to contact, and so that data was kept, of course, non-electronically, so wasn't in the public realm. That helped give us some indicators of where they had found some of the anomalies at that time. The geophysics has changed the game in the Iberian Pyrite Belt, and there's a lot of people now using multiple different tactics for targeting. At this point, I want to wrap it up and say thank you very much for your time today. I know there's additional questions, and I will get to those after this. But please feel free to contact us. My name and number are on every release that we put out. So thanks for your time, and have